How crucial is it to know how to vote as a Catholic, in particular in the upcoming presidential election? Hi, my name is Christina, and welcome to my channel, Christina's Catholic Homemaking. On this channel, I do cooking, book reviews, cleaning, decorating, and various other aspects of homemaking. And in this video, I'm going to talk about this book here. It's Catholic Voting in Mortal Sin, Your Vote Can Endanger Your Salvation by John Gerard Lewis. Now, if you look back about 4 years ago, I did a review on this book, except it was the first edition, and this is the second edition. Now, what makes this edition special is that he's added even more quotes regarding abortion and the necessity of voting for the candidate who is the most pro-life. So currently there's a lot of discussion going on about whether or not Donald Trump is pro-life enough to vote for. And I've even heard of some Catholics saying, well, because he's even a little bit pro-choice, that they're just going to abstain from voting. And that's such a bad idea, because as a chapter in this book addresses, a non-vote or vote for anyone but Trump at this point equals a vote for Kamala. And she is vehemently anti-Catholic. And she's also vehemently pro-choice, as in the pro-abort kind of pro-choice. In fact, she has voiced several times that how she is for abortion at any point, and her running mate signed a law in his state, bringing into being a law that allows for abortion at any stage. So they're incredibly dangerous to the pro-life movement. Now, in his book, at the very back, he has a page called Endnotes. And this is where it makes this book different, or at least expanded from the original first edition book. And he basically tells you where you can find the new quotes. And I have the first edition and I have this one because, well, I wanted the revised version and the new quotes. If you don't have the first edition already, I do highly recommend getting this edition, so that way you have the most up-to-date version. The first quote that he noted is in chapter 1, and it's note 3a. And so I'm going to take a look at that real quick. Okay, one of the revisions to chapter 1 in this book is where it says, the 2020 outcome was considered to be a draw, with the pollsters giving a slight edge to Joe Biden and others giving it to Donald Trump. Okay, the change in chapter 9 starts with this quote, and then I'll read the whole paragraph to you to make it easier. Collins' point was echoed by Bishop Felipe J. Estevez of St. Augustine, Florida. All too often, Estevez said, we hear people say, as a matter of faith, I am against abortion, but I cannot impose my belief on others. It is not a matter of imposing a belief, but of being committed to the truth about human life, which, as biological science confirms, begins at conception. Those who argue otherwise are not committed to reason, but the false belief that there are some human beings not deserving of the protection of our laws. So that right there was one of the new quotes in there. Okay, in chapter 13, there's a new quote in here, and it goes, and bishops give similar scandal by not speaking up publicly about the issue and danger of sacrilege. And this would speak to the concept of a person voting for a Democrat or the pro-choice candidate and then proceeding to go ahead and receive communion. At that point, that person, knowingly having voted for the candidate that's pro-choice and the most pro-choice one, has committed mortal sin. And receiving communion in mortal sin is a sacrilege against Jesus. And I've noticed that if you look in the book, especially, there's a page at the back, it's page 281 here, and let me see if I can hold it for you a little bit better. It has a whole page listing where the new quotes have been added, and he strongly addresses these issues about who can you vote for, and the discussion about the fact that, like, being that Trump is not quite as conservative on the pro-life issue as he was last time, the fact that he is still the most pro-life candidate, and so therefore it's necessary in order to stay in a state of grace to vote for the candidate that's the most pro-life. And if you don't, say for instance, you say I'm going to abstain from voting or I'm going to vote third party, you're basically giving a vote to the Democrat Party, the opposing party, because then more votes are going towards that person and being taken away from the conservative option, the more pro pro-life option, which is, in this case, Trump. I'm going to run through the table of contents as a refresher real quick for anyone who hasn't seen the other video yet and won't be going over to click to that one, although I highly recommend it because I do a pretty extensive review of the first edition of this book, which this book basically just has more information added to it. So it's got everything that the first edition had and then more meat for you. But the table of contents are: a teaching fatally ignored, does the Catholic voting bloc even exist, his greatest seduction, the Kennedy capitulation, the JFK aftermath, suddenly like everyone else, the anti-abortion Democratic Party, the untaught Catholic voter, a fallen away opportunity, America's mythical law, separation of church and state. Yes, I am trying to impose my beliefs on you. For better or worse, the bishops are still in charge. The bishops fiddle while Rome's church burns. I'm personally opposed to abortion and any law against it. Joe and Nancy wrestle with God Almighty. Catholic doctrine according to Alfred, the holy seamless garment. Clerics all dolled up in their seamless garment. The seamless garment torn apart. The seamless garment ripped to shreds. Your conscience isn't what you think or what you think. These bishops just say it. Your vote can be a mortal sin. Step by step, how to vote so you don't go to hell. Not voting can also be a mortal sin. How Trump overcame the Catholic intelligentsia. And the Catholic ticket, not the one with the Catholic. And if you couldn't tell by some of these chapters kind of what they indicate, first of all, if you don't know what the seamless garment is, the seamless garment argument is basically saying, oh, well, there's other issues that are just as important as abortion, and so therefore you can't make abortion the preeminent issue. No, that's completely wrong. Catholic teaching is abortion's the preeminent issue. There are, if I recall correctly, 5 deal breakers as far as voting for a candidate, but the preeminent one is abortion. So, I mean, even if they kind of tangle a little bit with the other 4 issues, as long as they're pro-life, and the most pro-life candidate, that is who you have to vote for as a Catholic. And I love here how he makes the point about not voting can also be a mortal sin. So by abstaining from voting, like I've mentioned already a couple times here, can you tell it's important to me? By not voting, you can actually cause a ripple effect of the most pro-choice candidate getting in, which would be devastating. And therefore, it's basically, by your abstaining from voting, you're giving a vote to the pro-choice crowd. I especially love that this book has the chapter step-by-step how to vote so you don't go to hell, because it gives really good guidance. But I mean, all the chapters are good. He goes into good detail on Catholic teaching, documents Catholic teaching, and gives incredible footnotes to this. Each chapter has the source where everything was drawn from. He does a really good job of citing his sources and backing up his point of view. And it's not even so much his point of view as it's church teaching. So he does an excellent job of backing up church teaching, or at least giving you the instructions on what church teaching is. Looking at the endnotes section, I think quite possibly the most endnotes may come from chapter 18. So let's take a quick look at some of the notes, the new additions from chapter 18. Now this chapter happens to be the one about the seamless garment ripped to shreds, which, you know, sounds good to me. Okay, so this is the new edition. This is a quote from Bishop Kevin Doran. He is in Elphin, Ireland. Voting to allow abortion is a sin and requires confession. If a Catholic voted yes, and he's referring to on a 2018 Irish referendum permitting abortion. Don't know if you were watching the news back then, but formerly in Ireland, you couldn't have an abortion. And then they had this referendum come up in 2018 to put it on the ballot, and the culture of death, unfortunately, won. So, as this quote goes, and I'll start it over again for you, if a Catholic voted yes, knowing and intending that abortion would be the outcome, then you should consider coming to confession. Voting yes was a sin. Now, here are two more quotes that were added to this chapter. One by Bishop Joseph G. Henfeld from Grand Island, Nebraska, so right here in the States. Are you willfully affronting the sovereignty of God? To support those who champion abortion rights is to now blindly open the door for advancing widespread religious persecution. To support such people because one agrees with them on other issues is to disregard the deepest flaw of moral character, the willful affront to the sovereignty of God as the Lord and giver of life. And then the next quote is also a new one. And this one is from Archbishop Philip Hannon, retired. And this is from New Orleans. Voting for an abortion rights candidate is a sin. No Catholic should vote for President Clinton or 1996 U.S. candidate Mary Leandrew because of their support on abortion rights. If a person actually believes in Catholic doctrine, I don't see how they can avoid it being a sin. The next one is from Bishop Edward Malsick from Cleveland. Abortion remains our preeminent priority. It is our solemn duty as citizens of our republic to cast a vote for the candidate who best supports the greatest ideals and moral teachings of our Catholic faith. Our bishops have said, and I agree with them, that the threat of abortion remains our preeminent priority because it directly attacks life itself, because it takes place within the sanctuary of the family, and because of the number of lives destroyed. And then the next one here is from Monsignor Kevin Mikhayan from John Cardinal Carroll, Chair of Moral Theology, St. Charles Borromeo Seminary. A candidate's correct stance on other issues doesn't matter. A voter who disagrees with a candidate's support for abortion or euthanasia would not be justified in voting for that candidate because the candidate favors such worthy objectives as improving education, healthcare, the environment, and so forth. Some mistakenly think that the pursuit of a greater good constitutes a proportionate reason for performing or assisting in acts which are intrinsically evil. It's pretty clear there. I love the fact that he addresses that issue that people like to bring up and say, oh, well, but they're also against this and this and this. Like, I had today a person on Instagram raise the issue to me saying, oh, well, Trump's also pro-LGBTQ. And I'm like, he's come out indifferent on the LGBT thing, like the lesbian, gay, bisexual. But from what I've looked up on the transsexual thing, no, he's not pro-transsexual. He's not pro any special transsexual rights. He is actually against the whole gender ideology thing and the trans aspect. So no, he's not for that. Either way, that whole concept comes second to the abortion issue. Okay, the next two quotes are, one, a voter's cooperation with grave sin, and this is from Bishop Alfred A. Schlert of Allentown, Pennsylvania. So someone from Pennsylvania, which, if I recall correctly, is one of the swing states. A Catholic voter is to approach the ballot box with the defense of innocent human life utmost in his or her mind and conscience. Catholic voters should consider whether their vote would constitute cooperation with a candidate's promotion of the grave sins of abortion and euthanasia. And then there's this one from Bishop Joseph E. Strickland. And it says, our absolute opposition to legalized abortion must be the first of the preeminent issues we consider in voting. Any candidate or political party which promotes abortion is precluded from any further consideration for a Catholic voter. And there's so many awesome quotes in this chapter. I remember reading it before and just loving it in the guidance of good, authentic Catholic teaching and Catholic leaders. So if you haven't been convinced on the issue yet, I highly recommend that you get this book. I know we're kind of sliding to the home stretch. There's less than a month left until the election. Some people have already gotten out with early voting and voted, which my husband and I have, because we didn't want to take the chance of something coming up and us missing voting on election day for some reason. So our votes have already been cast. My husband and I vote the same. That's actually one of the beauties when finding a spouse, is picking someone who is the same mindset as you politically and religiously. So we agree on all those issues to begin with. So he and I cast our ballots already and we voted the same. And we both love this book and highly recommend it. It is an awesome book. Like I said, if you want to hear more about the other chapters and a more in-depth review, you can go back to the previous book review on this on the first edition. I will put a clickable link up top, as well as putting a link in the description box. And if I can, at the end of the video, sometimes they let me put up a clickable link there. But in the meantime, thank you for watching my video. If you haven't yet, please click the like button and the subscribe button. Leave a comment down below about what you think of this book. I anticipate the possibility that there are those who will comment that are not so fond of Donald Trump and will express their opinion accordingly. And I also expect that there are going to be those who are in favor of Donald Trump, who is, in this case, the most pro-life candidate between the two, and that you guys will comment as well. In the meantime, like I said, if you could, click subscribe, like, comment, share, and I will see you in my next video.